Hey guys, welcome back to Real Talk with Miranda. Today is day 14, so I've been doing this for 2 weeks now, which is exciting. And it is November 10th, 2018. So, today I decided to do something kind of fun, if I do say so myself. I really love doing, making lists. So I thought that periodically throughout this year-long journey I would do top 10 lists. And so this is going to be my first one. So I love making lists. I love doing top 10 lists especially. I like categorizing things. It's a weird hobby of mine. It's very fun. So it was difficult when I was trying to decide what list I wanted to share with you guys. So I decided that I was going to do my top 10 favorite movies. So this list, of course, is subject to change. It changes all the time, and it was really difficult to think of just 10 movies that I would categorize as like my top 10 favorite movies ever. So, yes, this was really tricky. But, yeah, here we go. Oh, and one last thing I should say that there is no particular order here. This is just, random. Putting them in an order seemed too painful to do so and be like, oh, you're number one, but you're only number four, whatever. No, couldn't do it. So let me share with you my top 10 favorite movies in no particular order. Okay. So, number one, Psycho, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, came out in the 1960s. It is a fantastic movie. I love it for a number of reasons. One, it is the very first horror movie that I ever saw, and it terrified me to my very core. And since then, I've seen some very gruesome movies and some very traumatic movies that, for some people, and nothing for me personally ever came close to Psycho, which I think really shows that movie stands the test of time. It came out in the 1960s, and it's in black and white. You don't see any blood. In fact, the blood from one of the scenes is actually chocolate milk. Little fun fact for you. So it is, it is purely scary because of the acting and the cinematography and the story itself. And I think those movies are just amazing because I think so many horror movies now, not all, because there are some current horror movies that are just fabulous, and they utilize special effects appropriately. You know what I mean? Special effects are good, and they're, when done right and correctly, it can really help enhance the film. But I think a lot of horror movies now really do rely on gore and special effects, and it's not about the acting and the story and what we can do with cameras and lighting. You know what I mean? There's some very dramatic shadows in Psycho, and that's just unsettling, and it's just such a good story overall. And it's kind of that movie and Silence of the Lambs and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, all based on this one serial killer, Ed Gein. So it's also got some historical background, so I've started to research Ed Gein, who he was, and make the connections between these three movies and him as a person. So that's always interesting as well. So go see Psycho. It's a fabulous film. Alright, number two, The Goonies. Holy cow, do I love The Goonies. So taking a totally different shift here. I saw The Goonies for the first time when I was 7 years old, and I hated it. I was too young. I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't get the jokes. Everything went right over my head. I just didn't understand it. But and then I saw it again when I was 12 or 13, and I felt like I kind of fit in with the age group there, with Mikey and Mouth and Chunk and whatever. It just kind of, I just fit in with that group. And when I watched it, it just really, really reminded me of my own Goonies group. I've kind of mentioned playgroup a couple times, but we were a group of 8 people. Well, not including some of the other people who moved away and some of the adults, but there were us 8 kids for the most part. and 5 boys, 3 girls, and the Goonies are a group of 7, 5 boys, 2 girls. And I just really connected with it because the way that they talked to each other, their banter was kind of like this, like, mean, but also, like, friendly, like, loving relationship, but also, like, you know, you were able to tease each other and, like, poke each other, and you had that just very close bond. And just how they, like, so it was just one, how they communicated with each other, but then just going on these adventures and, like, really being there for one another and being supportive. I really just connected with that. And, you know, when I was 11, I moved away from that, and that was just such a huge part of my life, was being with these people and having that community. And so when I saw it again when I was around 12, I think it really hit home, and I was like, wow, like, this movie, like, this feels so close to my, like, heart. Like, I could watch it and I could easily pick out, like, oh, so-and-so would be this character, and so-and-so would be this character. Like, I could just see us in it. And, you know, it became, like, a home away from home. Like, when I was in the dorms and I was really homesick, or, like, when I was really missing all those people from Indiana, like, I would just turn on the Goonies because I felt like I had a friend, and I felt like I had just, you know, people to turn to, and it just felt homey. So, plus it's a hilarious movie, and there's good 80s music, like Cyndi Lauper sings a great song, and it's a great film. So, check out the Goonies. Oh, and little side note, I once got to go to Astoria, Oregon, and see where they filmed it, and it was the best day of my life. So, just a little side note. So grab your Baby Ruths and Rocky Road ice cream and go watch it. The Goonies. Okay, so let's see. Number 3. I would have to say When Harry Met Sally would definitely be in this list. I love this movie. I'm really not a sappy, romantic person. I don't like those movies. I really hate Valentine's Day. Like, I'm not into that scene. It's just not me. It makes me feel queasy. I'm not kidding. So I was kind of shocked when I really liked this movie. It's funny. It's so artistic and well done, and Rob Reiner is the director, and he is fabulous. He's one of my all-time favorite directors. He has another movie that will be later on this list for sure. That is another one of my favorites, and he's just great. He's a great director. I love, like, the authentic pieces when they're interviewing the grown-ups, like the not grown-ups, but, you know, like the older people, interviewing them and just having them tell their story of when they got together, or got married, or fell in love, or whatever. And it's just, to me, it's so sweet and it's authentic, and it's something that you don't see a lot in movies, because it's just, movies are so overplanned, you know, for good reason. But this is just so cute to have, like, them just sit them down and be like, okay, we're gonna turn the camera on, tell us how you met, tell us how you fell in love, tell us your story. I really love that aspect. And I love the aspect of, like, just the concept, can men and women be friends? Which I do think they can, even though the movie proves that it's not true. But I like that idea, like that thought, and how it's just kind of following the lives of these two people and their friendship going into a romance, which I also feel like I've always really connected with, because me and my boyfriend were friends for 18 years before we got together. So I think that's an interesting, like, path to see, like, when you are friends and then you turn into something more. And what does it do to the friendship? And what does it do to your relationship? And the acting's good, and the music, the soundtrack for that movie is just fabulous, and it's funny, and it's a sweet film, and I like it a lot. So that would be one. I'll go into my second Rob Reiner film that happens to be in this list. So number 4 is Stand By Me. So we got another 80s, like, teen movie, I guess, going on here. It is based off of one of my all-time favorite stories. It's a short story, but it's in a collection book by Stephen King. And Stephen King's story is called The Body, so it's not Stand By Me. And you would think it's a horror thing because it's Stephen King and it's called The Body, but it is not. And it is the best coming-of-age film or coming-of-age short story that I've ever seen. And it's also the best adaptation from book to movie I've ever seen anything. Like, it is dead set. It's exactly the same for the most part. Like, there's like 1 or 2 little minor changes, but it's amazing. I've never seen something like, I watched the movie, I read the story, and I'm like, it's exactly the same. He nailed it. It's fantastic. So I highly recommend reading the short story and reading the book. Reading the short story and watching the movie, because both are fabulous. But I like it because it feels so authentic. I like that authenticity. Because the kids really do seem like they're their characters, because they're 12-year-old boys in the book. I think they might, and the movie, but I think the actors might be like a few years older, but still, like, they really do seem like they are their age, and like that they have been friends for forever, and that they would actually legitimately say those lines. Like, they just felt like their character. And it's such a simple storyline, but I love it. Like, and they grow so much. I think that the first paragraph in the short story, I spent probably 20-30 minutes just rereading it, just like really working it through, because it is beautifully written. It does. I'm 20 years old and I still feel like I'm coming of age, so to speak, and I think it really speaks to like that loss of innocence and learning about the world and learning about yourselves. And one of my favorite parts about this story is that they're not friends in the end. Not necessarily, like, they're real. It feels real. Like, they go into this adventure being the best of buds, and they come out of it still being friends. And, you listen to the narrator, and he talks about, like, we didn't see each other much after that. Like, it happens. I can look back at the friends that I had when I was 12, and yes, it was so much fun. And, like, that was the whole point of that story, is he said that quote that he says, like, I never had any friends like the ones I had when I was 12. And it's true. You look back at your friendships you had when you were 12, and they're so innocent, and at the same time, like, I don't know the right word for it, but it's a great friendship, and it's not the same when you grow up, for sure. But I like that they're not friends at the end. I like that he is real, and he's like, we grow apart. Like, I'm so sad that, well, I'm not gonna say that because that spoils something. Like, he talks about how they grow apart, and he's just very real about that. Like, oh, I haven't seen these people in 10, 15 years. We hardly even talked in high school. Like, it feels real, and I think that so many stories end with this very happy ending. And the truth is, not every friendship or relationship or story has a happy ending. And I think that we are accustomed to seeing that, and then when it doesn't happen in our real lives, we get kind of lost. Like, well, we were friends since we were this big, you know what I mean? Like, how come we're not friends anymore? Well, people change, and life happens, and and so I think it's a good reflection, and it's good to see that not everything happens like in this happy way. And maybe that's sad. It definitely does make me cry, but like, it's a reality check, and it's authentic, and I like it a lot. So go see Stand By Me and read The Body. Okay, number 5, Juno. I really love Juno, and I think that there's another authentic piece to that, because she gets pregnant when she's 16 and with this guy that she likes, but they're not really a couple, and she's kind of confused about her own feelings, and I think that the way it was portrayed is just so real. I also love the soundtrack to that movie. Fantastic music, and the acting is super funny, and it's just very well written, and every time the ending just makes me cry every time. And I think I also really like, okay, I love the movie Baby Mama, right? But the ending is kind of rough because most people who aren't pregnant and can't become pregnant, like, don't usually get knocked up. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't happen like that normally. Sometimes you get a miracle, but it's just kind of, I think, sad to see that in Baby Mama she did get pregnant in the end, because that's just usually not what happens. And I think for a lot of people, a lot of women who struggle with that, watch it and just see, like, oh, Hollywood, just kind of came in and like swooped in for the happy ending. And I really like that Jennifer Garner's character in Juno didn't have that. You really saw her struggle of like, I want to be a mom. I really want that. And I can't without Juno. I can't without somebody helping me. And like, I think it really narrated that struggle a lot, and I liked that piece. Um, and I don't think it was overly dramatic. I think it felt real. Like, obviously, I'm not a teen mom, and never, felt that kind of isolation and that those fears and those insecurities and the like weirdness between the baby daddy and the adoptive family and then your family and your friends. Like I don't know that, so I don't know what's real, but it felt real. It didn't feel like this overly dramatic, like parents threatening to kick them out of the house and things like that. It just felt very real and true to what would happen in real life. So I like it, and it's quirky and it's cute, and it's a good story. So that would be number 5. Okay, what's next? Number 6. I would definitely say The Help. Also would highly recommend reading the book because it is another very close adaptation from book to movie. And I like that one a lot. I think what was crazy to me is that, the story's taking place in the 60s, and I was just like kind of sitting there recognizing that my mother was born in the 60s, my grandparents were alive, like my great grandparents, and it's like the way that we treated people for being different like that was not very long ago, like this was 50 years ago that segregation, that the civil rights movement was like all happening. And I think it's just a good reminder for today because racism is still alive and well, as is homophobia and sexism and transphobia and just, numerous phobias and isms, I guess you could say. And so I think it's a good reality check of like, we watch this and we're like, wow, people treated them horrifically. And then we have to like kind of sit and turn that around on ourselves and be like, well, how are we treating all these minorities right now in our lives? And do we want to be on the wrong side of history? Because yes, it's historical fiction, but it's still historical. This is real stuff, And I like the idea, like, I like how Skeeter, which is Emma Stone's character, uses her privileges to be a voice for those who can't speak up. I really do like that. I think that's good for me to remember as a white woman, as a cis woman, as a Christian, right? Like, I have all these privileges, and I can learn to use my voice to help those who don't always have a voice. And at the same time, she wasn't the savior, in my opinion. Some people have argued differently, but I didn't really see her as the savior who came in, like, saved all the black women, and oh, we all should bow down to her, because Aibileen wrote the majority of that book. You know what I mean? Like, Aibileen and Minnie really did come through and like gather all these other black women and work really hard and like made that their story. It was kind of just Skeeter's idea, and she kind of like got it started, because if the black women kind of got that started, they could definitely have been arrested, killed, right? Like, they did need a little bit of protection when working with the publishing company, which is what I think Skeeter's role was that kind of idea, plant the seed, let me help with some logistic issues. But a lot of the writing was done by Aibileen and Minnie, and a lot of the other like hard work was done by them and the other black maids. So I really like that dynamic, and I like being able to see that, and I really love that it was a woman's story as well, seeing the strong women, and it's just a good historical, like, loud noise, sorry, historical fiction that we can like kind of remember and just be like, well, yeah, this was a horrible time in our lives. Let's never repeat that. Let's change the way that we are interacting with minorities now. So I would highly recommend that movie. That's another one that definitely makes me cry. Okay, I think that was 6, so let's see. Number 7, I would definitely say Up. Another movie that makes me cry. I think all these movies are big, like, theme throughout them all. They're things that really make me feel stuff. Like, I remember walking out of all these movies with just, like, a lot of emotion, whether that be, like, fear, awe, inspiration, sadness, just, like, this. I always felt a lot in these movies, and I think that that's why they stuck with me so much. So, yeah, I remember seeing Up when it first came out and just remembering being like, that's one of my all-time favorite movies for sure. I love the music. It's a really great soundtrack. I love the idea of it, and it's just sweet and it's innocent, and I just sometimes you need to sit down and watch something like that and be like, oh my god, look what he did for his wife. That is just pure love, and doesn't need to be like any other reason behind it. Like that's just sweet. So let's move on. Number eight, right? I just did 7. I can't remember where I'm at. I think it's 8. I would say Inside Out. Also cry a lot during that one. Pixar does it to you, man. Okay. But yes, Inside Out, I really felt like that movie connected to me quite a lot because I had moved when I was 11, and here's the girl in the story moving when she was 11. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was able to articulate and explain what those feelings I had felt were because I had seen this movie. So when I watched it, I just remember sitting there crying and be like, I understand it now. Like that idea that our memories that we have back then, yes, they're happy, but now they're tainted. They are sad now because of that. So they can be both. They can be happy memories, but they're sad because you don't have those people anymore. And when I was 11, I had moved and I was feeling all these emotions. I wasn't able to articulate that and really be like, well, I'm thinking about this event, but it's really happy. So why am I sad right now? You know what I mean? I didn't feel like I was able to ever articulate that until I watched that movie. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. And I think the movie came out when I was 17, so this was a good, 6 years later that after moving, that I finally felt like I understood. And I just love the way that, it articulates, mental illness. Like, we can see how someone would be anxious or depressed or, and I think that that's just a huge, huge accomplishment in a film industry. Like, I've definitely analyzed and wrote about that movie for psych classes and things like that, and as someone who struggles with anxiety and depression, I think it was really important for me to be able to, if I can't articulate something, I can be like, well, watch this movie, you know what I mean? It felt like there was something else about it. Plus, it's a cute movie, and it's a kid movie, and it's funny, and so it's fun. I like that movie a lot. All right, so what next? Number 9. It's getting hard now because I have to think about which movies aren't gonna make the cut and which ones are. It's a struggle. So I would say that number 9 would be Saw. I love that movie, and this is a great example of a horror movie that is on the newer side, but at the same time doesn't, I wouldn't say it doesn't fully rely on special effects. I think they utilize them in the perfect way. And the story is just, it's innovative, it's new, it's creative. I really liked that idea of this is a game, you can get out of it, right? This is something new. And I'm not going to spoil anything because you need to see it, but that ending, and same with Psycho, the endings of these movies are just mind-blowing, and I just remember sitting in both of those films and just being like, oh my god. That's all I can say. And so I'm gonna stop talking about Saw because I don't want to spoil anything, and don't look up anything about Saw or Psycho because it will spoil it for you if you haven't seen them. So just go watch them, enjoy it. But yeah, Saw is a really good one, and I think that the way it's filmed, the way it's edited, and it's a super low budget film. They really worked with what they had, and so I think it's a pretty cool movie. All right, and I guess that'll be the last one. Is number 10. Oh, what do I want to say? Number 10, I would say, I think I would say Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Because I don't think I've ever laughed harder in a movie before. It is just so funny. Just so funny. Oh my god. So yeah. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand the humor because it's British humor and kind of older. But if you do get it, like, you will be like peeing your pants. I remember recently watching it again with my boyfriend and his family, and it's like Nathaniel and his sister Elena and his dad and I were going to show Henry, his youngest brother, this movie because he had never seen it before. And the four of us were just in tears laughing so hard. And we had all seen this movie several times before, but Henry, I think, was just sitting there like, what? So, like, I guess, you know, if you don't get that kind of humor, you're not gonna think it's funny, and you're gonna think it's stupid and weird and not get it at all. But if you do understand it, like, your stomach will be in stitches from laughing so hard, I swear. So, I would say that one because it's a lighthearted film, and it's great to just watch and be like, this is so dumb and so funny and hilarious. And, you know, sometimes you need movies like that. So, yeah, I would say that would be my number 10. So that's the end of this list. I will definitely do more, like top 10 favorite songs, top 10 favorite horror movies, favorite books, TV shows, right? Favorite authors, whatever, right? Like, I can go on and on for top 10 lists. So stay tuned for more, and I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this video. Sorry for that little cut in between. My mom came in. I really hate filming when other people are around because I knew that was gonna happen. I thought, I'm so close, and then she like came barging in. I was like, Mom, are you freaking kidding me? She's like, what are you filming? And I'm like, a vlog. And she's like, what? So, whatever. I'm gonna go ahead and try to edit that little part out. So sorry for the little interruption. It's gonna look slightly weird, but anyway. Alright. It was great sharing my top 10 list with you, and I'll see you tomorrow. See ya!